My name is Bryan Scott. I was born in Handsworth, Birmingham. There was only two of us, me and my sister. We grew up in Handsworth. I went to a local primary school, and then I went on to Hampstead Hall Secondary School in Birmingham. I had a normal upbringing, mom and dad, me and my sister, small family, but my parents came from Jamaica originally, 1961, 62, and they came straight to Birmingham in Handsworth, uh, residing on Murdoch Road, where they lived in a rented property, because at that time they weren't in a position to buy their own property. So they lived in rented property for the first several years, and then early 70s they bought their own property, still in Handsworth, and that's where I grew up. Schooling was good. I went to Wills Green Junior School, primary school, and from there I went on to Hampstead Hall Secondary School. I passed my 11 plus, but I was denied a place at Handsworth Grammar. Because in those days, the headmaster would choose who would go to the grammar schools and who would not. And if you were a person of colour, you tend not to go. So when my mom and dad went to a parents' evening, one of the teachers was outraged at this and said, it's not fair, you should appeal and fight this. But my mom says, well, I don't know how to fight this, my mom and dad, but I just want my son to have a good education. So she said, let him go to Hampstead Hall. And I went to Hampstead Hall and I had a great time. And that's how I knew, because one of the teachers told my mum and dad what was going on. But back in those days, these things could happen. I know it probably can't happen today. Well, I left school with a few GCSEs, CSEs, but I didn't really need those because I already decided by the time I was 14, 15, after going on an ATC camp, that I wanted to join the RAF. So when I was 15, I took the entrance exam, I took the medical, everything, and I passed those. So really, I didn't need the qualifications to join because I'd scored enough on the entrance exam to join anyway. So I just had to wait till I was 16 to leave school to actually join the RAF. Basically, ATC is called the Air Training Corps, and basically it's a uniform organisation run by the RAF for young people. I call it a youth club in uniform, and they came to visit our school one day, did a presentation, so I joined my local ATC, and I did a load of activities, from map reading, learning about clouds, first aid, etc. I went camping, and after experiencing that, I wanted to join the RAF. That's what made me want to join the RAF. As I was growing up, well, I was born in Birmingham, so I was born in Britain. And I thought Britain was Great Britain. We were powerful. We were economically, politically. We occupied a lot of countries, military. So I looked at Great Britain as being great when I was growing up as a child. I probably faced discrimination, but as a child, I probably didn't realize it was discrimination. And a typical example is, like I said, I passed my 11 plus. I didn't go to a grammar school, but my mum didn't tell me about it until I was 13, 14. I was already at Hampstead Hall. So I said to Mum, why didn't you do something about it? As we would. Mum said she didn't know how to fight the system. I just wanted to have an education. So I probably faced it, but I didn't know at that time as a child, really. I just took it in my stride. When I went to the recruitment office, they showed you a video, they gave you a talk and a chat. And basically what I remember them saying to me is, when you do the test, score as much as you can, and then you got more choice. the more you score, the more choice you got. I mean, so the technical trades, the engineering trades, obviously needed a higher score, but maybe the less technical, like a chef, you didn't need so much. So that's what I aimed for. And then when I did the test, then he told me, well, these are your choices. And I chose to be an engineer because, I'll be honest, it paid the most. I was an aircraft engineer, but I specialize in weapons. We call it weapons technician. Basically, first you do your training, and that's basic engineering, learning about engineering, how to do simple things like file a block of metal, how to lock wire, how to solder. You do a bit of electrics. And then once you do your basic training, then you do your trade training, which is more specialized. So you learn about aircrafts, you learn about bombs, you learn about weapons, you learn about small arms, because they're all part of a weapons engineers work. You learn about ejection seats, you learn about bombs, because you might work in a bomb dump. You learn about small arms, because you might work in an armory. You learn bomb disposal. Again, I did bomb disposal, EOD. So there's a lot that you can do. But yeah, that was sort of the training. So I finished my training. I came to RF Cosford for my training, actually, over 40 years ago. And after finishing my training, my first posting was to RAF Wittering in Peterborough. Working on Harrier jump jets. And from Wittering, I went overseas to Germany. I went to RAF Gütersloh, again working on Harriers, because that was now on my CV for the RAF. So I went to Germany for about 6 or 7 years, came back to UK, then was posted to RAF Lossiemouth, working on Nimrods. Then went back to, in between we had Falklands. Forgot about that, even though I didn't go. I was part of the Falklands deployment, but I didn't actually go to the Falklands. And then from Lossiemouth, RAF Stafford, came back to RAF Cosford as an instructor, and I finally finished my career after 25 years at the careers office in the city centre, Birmingham city centre. I did 3 years as a recruitment officer in Birmingham CIO, Careers Information Office. Yes. Well, the Falklands War came along at an early part of my career. I was only 18 at the time when I was stationed in Germany. And what we had to do was supply weapons and ammunition for the ships that were going down to the Falklands. That was our main support role, to make sure that the weapons, the artillery, whatever they needed, and it was our job to supply. I mean, via the army, via the navy. Okay, so I presume, well, I was treated, how would I describe it? I experienced things that probably some would say weren't good. I mean, some people call it banter, but I was of the thing that I'm not going to let anyone stop me from having a career. I mean, so if someone called me something, for example, a name, I'd call them a name back. I gave as good as I got, if I'm honest. I wasn't going to let it defeat me, not being treated the same as everybody else. But saying that, I grew up in Handsworth, Birmingham, so I was used to growing up with other people of colour, white people, Asian people. I think the hardest part for me was when we'd have our annual assessments. That was me the hardest part, because you have your annual assessment and then you're just a young lad, and you know what I mean, your superior do your annual assessment and they do a report on you, but he wouldn't show you that report. You couldn't see that report, so you don't know what's been written about you. I mean, you've been told, but what you've been told is not necessarily what's being written about you. And I was proved right some years later when 10 years later, 15 years later, they had Freedom of Information Act and they had to give us that information. And you could see all the stuff that was detected, what do you call it, was blacked out. You could see all the stuff that was blacked out from those annual reports. And it has a knock-on effect because when you think about it, if you don't get the report you're supposed to get at that time, you don't get promotion as quick as maybe your other peers. If you don't get promotion as quick as your other peers, then that means you lose out at the end of it because you don't reach a rank you're supposed to reach, so you don't get the pension your other peers are getting because you haven't attained the rank that they've obtained because you got poor assessments, recommendations in the first place. So I found that very, well, I've come to terms with it now, he says. But that was the biggest, there's financial implications. And when I did leave the Air Force, I thought about going back to the Air Force and, getting my money off them, as they say, suing them. But my wife says, how can you do that? You're a Baptist minister now, so you got to forgive. So I just left it at that. Yeah. But to me, that was the biggest for me. I think I suffered financially because being a person of color, I was treated differently. And I can give various examples. I mean, my peers took 4 or 5 years to get to corporal. I took 6 or 7 years. I can give various examples, but. Well, in saying all that I've said, I still had a wonderful time in the RAF, and I'll do it all again. One of my highs would be, I suppose, the first Gulf War, where we went out, kicked butt, so to speak. We thought that war was going to be a long war, but it was over in 3 or 4 days. Iraq invaded Kuwait, yes, and we went out to Saudi Arabia. So we deployed to Saudi, and our remit was to take Kuwait back from Iraq, which we did. And then John Major, the Prime Minister, came out to say thank you. So that was a high. I found it exciting but scary, going to war again after the Falklands, even though I wasn't in the Falklands. But as I said, because we had good equipment, we got good training, we went into it confident as well. And it was an experience. Well, I got to the age of 40, which is in the RAF, for those who have served will know it's an important age because when you get to 40, you've got to make a decision. You can stay until you're 55, or you can leave at 40 and have a second career. And for me, the opportunity to have a second career was too much for me not to stay. It was too much for me not to leave. And by then, I knew what road I was going to go down. I was going to train to be a Baptist minister. So when I got to 40, I knew I was going. And to be fair, the RF did try to keep me in. They did offer me, and that's why they offered me the posting at Birmingham CIO, because I lived in Birmingham. That's why they offered me a posting at Stafford, because I lived in Birmingham, so I could commute. But I said, when I got to 4, I'm going. That's it. I've done 24, 25 years. Had a wonderful time, but time to turn over the next leaf, next chapter in my book. Well, the next chapter was basically, I went and trained for 4 years up in Bristol. I did my theological degree, a degree in theology, because I knew by then what God was calling me to do, to become a Baptist minister, and that's a 4-year course. So I got halfway through that course, and the church I'm currently in, they contacted me and said, when you finish your training, will you come and be minister at this church? So I've been there for the last 25 years, and I couldn't really turn them down when they contacted me, because I grew up in that church as a child and went off to the RAF. So I thought God's got a sense of humor. So yeah, so that's how I'm in the church I'm in now, Cannon Street Memorial Baptist Church, which is on the Soho Road in Handsworth, and I've been there since I left the RAF the last 25 years. A young person, I would say, join the RAF, join the military first, because that training will set you up for life. That's the training that I was getting, that I got to enable me to be a Baptist minister. At the time, I didn't realize, but on reflection, I realized that training put me in good stead. So I'd recommend any young person to join any of the military for the career paths, the training, the opportunities that it gives you. And once you've got that under your belt, then you can branch off and become, if it is a minister or whatever it is. Because normally, if you join at 16, 17, we're normally still a bit young, a bit immature to maybe do some of those jobs. Yet, we need a bit of experience under our belt, and you can certainly get that in the military. Okay, so the first three from the British government, and you got one is long service good conduct, you got one for the Gulf War, and you got one for Silver Jubilee. And these other two, these were awarded to us for the Gulf War from Saudi Arabia one, and that one's from Kuwait when we went in the first Gulf War.